Welcome to another edition of Bob and Mr. D. As usual, we have Bob with us. Today we've got a special guest, Armani from Kameraz. Very glad to have him here, very knowledgeable on many levels. And we're going to talk about probably a lot more about film today, but if we go into other directions, that'll also happen. So welcome to Bob and Mr. D. Armani.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you. Let's start off with the current situation in South Africa with in terms of film. Where is it going? Where has it been?
It's been a little bit volatile at the moment. Things have changed quite a bit over the past few years, especially I think since COVID. A lot of film stocks have gotten discontinued. A lot of the stuff that people used to shoot on regularly and that was readily available, you just can't get it anymore. The remainder of the stuff that is still available has now gotten really expensive. It's difficult to get the stuff, but at the same time, there's more demand. Like film photography is starting to pick up in popularity. There's a lot more people shooting it now than probably 20 years ago. So with the higher demand, it's meant that the cost of a lot of stuff has gone up. You might struggle to find certain secondhand things, whereas 10 years ago, you'd be readily available. Like I remember when I started working here in 2010, there were like some amazing film cameras that we couldn't give away. Nobody wanted them. Nowadays, as soon as it comes in the door, it's like out the window a few hours later. And so...
But you shouldn't be throwing cameras out the window, Armani.
Yeah, please don't.
You can really give it to us. We'll gladly have them.
You were saying about the price. You're actually right, because I think I end up thinking about shooting more than actually shooting nowadays, whereas I was shooting more than thinking.
Yeah.
Especially on the film side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so expensive per frame that you can't just go out and just shoot photos and like spray and pray and hope that something came out right. You have to make sure your angles are just right and your exposures are perfect, and that the thing that you're taking a photo of is worth spending the money on, because it's a lot of pocket change to get a roll of film developed. So you want to make sure it's special enough.
And in terms of South Africa and the international market, do you think it's still more affordable in other countries to shoot film?
Maybe the actual film side of things, possibly. If you somewhere like North America or Europe or Asia, I think finding a film developing lab is probably a lot easier than it is locally. You have more options for places that you can take it to go get it processed. And with more options, there's more competition, and that might make the pricing a bit more competitive. I mean, it's probably still expensive over there, but you have a lot less option here in South Africa. There's less than a handful of places you can take it nationwide to get it.
Well, while we touched on that, let's mention a few that are local, because this is all about local content. I know, well, let me mention one. You can mention who you know. And Bob, if you know something we don't know, please mention it. Right, so I know RGB Pixel Lab. They do a lot of good work, and they're pretty close. They are in Linden.
Yeah, just up the road from us. They've been around a long time. They know what they're doing. They can do C41 processing, E6 processing, black and white.
Do they still do E6?
As far as I know, on their website, they say they still do.
I think they do limited runs.
Yes, because last time I checked, they said they collect a bunch and then process it.
Yeah, they'll batch it, process it in one go. So you might drop it off on a Monday, and you're not going to have it back by the end of the week. You might have it back in 2 or 3 weeks or a month, depending on how much demand there is from other photographers to process that same type of film at that given moment in time. C41 is probably a much quicker process.
Yeah. See, the E6 uses a much more different chemical process, and they bring it into South Africa in a limited quantity.
Okay, so while we're still on that, when you cross-process E6 using C41 chemicals, does it make a huge difference?
Your images will come out very differently. Your contrast, your saturation, your colors will look completely different than what it would if you processed it in the chemical it was supposed to be processed in. And it'll change how long it takes to get it.
Yes.
So basically, Bob, if you're doing a professional shoot, don't shoot E6 and process C41 unless you want to look like you made a mistake.
Yeah. Or if you really want to get experimental and start getting weird and funky with your with your photos, then you can start cross-processing. But if you want to do a serious shoot, you're going to want it's going to degrade your quality.
Anyway, getting back to the local labs.
Yeah.
Another one that's nearby to us, literally across the road over there, Photo First in Cresta. They can do film. I believe they only do C41, so they won't do E6 or black. I don't think they do black. Yeah, and they'll do 35 mil. I'm not sure about 120.
Yes, they actually do 120. Remember, yes, the roles that we had previously.
Oh, did you take them there?
I took them there and then he did it. But unfortunately, the camera was on multi-shots. So when they came out looking weird.
We'll have to see those results here on this channel.
Definitely.
Please.
We'll put them on. Okay. But they look...
So it's good to know that they do
120, yeah. But not a lot of people also knew, because I had to go there and ask prior before shooting that, do you guys actually process 120?
I think they're the last Photo First in the country that still shoots, or still develops film.
Yeah.
I think the one in Clearwater used to. I don't know if they
But now they send it to the one here.
I think they're the only ones. So luckily for me, like when I shoot film, I just walk across the road at lunchtime and I've got my film back the next day. So that's nice.
So what's your favorite film stock to shoot?
The cheap ones. Film is expensive. Yeah, that's even better because sometimes I can get that for free. I prefer color. And these days, with the difficulties getting film, I shoot what I can find. Like I might want to shoot something in particular, but there's just no stock of it available, and you have to wait for the next shipment to arrive, which might only be in a few months' time. And
Having said that, you do have stock here at Kameraz.
we got film.
So if you want film, Kameraz has film.
This is the place for the film. Closest place.
It tells you how difficult to get film sometimes when a person who works at the camera shops still can't get it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not any fault of ours. It's just sometimes, like for example, the stuff gets imported in very small amounts, and the shipping can take a long time because it's not like they're ordering like containers of film.
Bunch, yeah.
So there's not a readily available amount of stock. So between shipments, it can be a few months, and so it can be hard to get. So I'll often just shoot whatever I can get or whatever's affordable.
Yeah.
I don't shoot on film professionally. I shoot on it for myself. So
As a hobby.
I'll shoot digitally professionally, but when I shoot film, I do it because I want to, and then as long as it's good film, I'll shoot it.
So I know you've done a few professional shoots on film, but I would like to challenge you out there. If you are doing professional shoots regularly on film, please contact us. We need to talk to you. We need you on the show.
Definitely.
Because it's a very limited
Community.
Very true, yeah.
The space has not much information also, so...
I mean, I've been here 15 years, and as far as I know, I only have one customer who sold all his digital gear and replaced it with film-only gear. He shoots exclusively film.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting.
Is it a very niche thing that he shoots?
I think he does a lot of commercial work. I'll 35 mil.
Really?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on his name. I'm terrible with names, so I've forgotten it. But he's it's all commercial stuff. So he will come in, buy several rolls of film. Then I know he's got a big shoot planned. Because usually he'll buy in advance for a specific project. He'll know like how many types of shots he's going to be getting, and then he'll buy the amount of film he thinks he's going to need for that kind of shot. So yeah, there's not a lot of commercial photographers that shoot film, let alone shoot exclusively film. And I think the only reason he does it is because one, he's good enough, and it's a unique look for his portfolio, and his customers request it from him. So
That's also unusual.
Very unusual.
I wish my customers would say, Dimitri, we need this on film.
Oh,
Thank you.
we'd have so much money.
That's another reason why it's not that popular these days with, like, if you're a commercial photographer and you've got customers that you need to make happy, they want the turnaround from the shoot to having something that they can work with
Yeah,
quite
that's the
quickly.
Quite quickly, yes.
And if you're doing a shoot and you've got like 10 rolls of film, you have to go and get developed.
It takes a bit of
Sorry,
time.
I'm only going to be able to have the photos to you in like 4 or
3,
5
4
days. I've got
days,
a lot of film to develop, and then,
And then
you
you-
have to scan them, and then only will you get the digital files. And
And you're putting your trust in the process.
Yes, because you also don't know what comes out.
yeah, like if you're going to be shooting that amount of film for that kind of pressure, I don't think you would be outsourcing your development. You're going to
So
do it
you'd have to best-
yourself. You'd
Yeah.
have to have your own darkroom in your house and process it yourself,
But-
just to make sure that everything comes out exactly right and you don't have a really expensive shoot
Is it-
going down the drain because your developer accidentally exposed it or
In your experience, right, do you believe that it's more cheaper and affordable to do it yourself or to take it to a lab?
I think it'll depend on quantity. If you're doing a lot, then yeah, it'll work out cheaper to do it yourself. It's getting the right equipment to develop yourself is not that expensive. Like you can do it relatively affordably. Get like a dark bag and some developing tanks and that kind of stuff. The most expensive stuff would be the chemicals, which you have to buy new ones every so often. The most expensive thing would be your time. It takes a lot of time to learn how to do it and do it well. Because film developing is an art in itself, and the way taking photos is an art. Like I'm sure you go out and get a good camera, start learning how to take photos, learning how to expose and compose, all that kind of stuff. It takes a long time before you become good enough that you're confident enough to be able to sell your work commercially. The amount of time it takes to learn how to use a camera, it's going to take that same amount of time to learn how to develop well. Like learning how to do it basically won't take that long, but it might not be very good. And so, yeah, it takes time to master it. In the modern era, learning how to Photoshop something can be as complex and in depth as learning how to shoot. And in the old days with analog, learning how to develop was the analog version of learning how to be good at Photoshop. So it's time consuming.
Yeah, so a lot of the functions in Photoshop today are based on darkroom techniques.
Dodging, burning. A lot of the terms used, like for the tools in Photoshop, they'll come from the analog process of developing. Like dodging and burning is one of the most well-known
So
ones.
interesting. Wow.
So getting back to the availability and the markets and everything, I know that Pentax launched their 17 camera. Is it called 17 or Pentax 17? Or
Pentax 17.
Okay. And there was mixed reviews. Can you tell us more about from your side?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting just to have a brand new film camera from a big photographic player like Pentax. So we were very excited when we first heard that something was going to be launched. But then when we saw the specs of it, a lot of people were disappointed. We were hoping for a 35mm camera that shot 35mm because, yeah, it's a 35mm camera, but it shoots half frame. Half frame is, you lose a lot of definition and sharpness, and you're shooting a small negative and you're blowing it up, and the picture quality suffers as a result. It's if you're a serious photographer, that's not something you want. Like 35mm is small by pro film standards. Like if you're going to be a really serious photographer, or if image quality is of the utmost importance to you, you're not going to be shooting 35mm. You're going to be shooting medium format, or even sometimes bigger, like large format, because the larger the format, the bit more detail and the sharper and all that kind of stuff. So shooting a half frame camera was a big disappointment for a lot of people. And the other main reason so many people were disappointed is that it was primarily an automatic camera with some sort of semi-automatic modes. It wasn't a fully manual camera. You didn't have...
Yeah, with zone focus, not my favorite.
Yeah, so it was a rangefinder camera that it wasn't SLR, so what you saw through the viewfinder wasn't what the lens was capturing. So focusing could be tricky, especially if you were shooting wide open, because you'd have a very narrow zone of focus, and so it'll be easy to get your focusing wrong. You couldn't control your shutter speed and your aperture fully. So you didn't have full creative control over what you were doing. And it was quite an expensive camera. I think it was like 13,000 Rand. And if you're going to be
Spend that much money.
Not a beginner's price.
if you want to spend that kind of money on a film camera, you want a pretty capable film camera. So, I mean, you could buy a Pentax K1000 secondhand for between 2,000 and 2,500 Rand. Fully mechanical, built like a tank, reliable. What you see through the viewfinder is what the lens is capturing, so you can get accurate focusing. Lenses were sharp. You've got a huge range of lenses to choose from. Pentax 17 couldn't even change lenses. So you could spend a fraction of that price on something secondhand, get something far more capable, and something you can grow with. So even if you're a beginner photographer wanting to learn how to shoot on film, you can... K1000 is easy to start with, and you can become really experienced over several years of shooting, and it'll still make you happy. Whereas a Pentax 17 is, you're going to outgrow it pretty quickly if you're spending a lot of time doing photography. And again, with the price, that kind of camera with those kind of specs is something that was most likely aimed towards beginners, like somewhere between the age of like 18 and 28 buying their first film camera. They don't have a lot of experience shooting on film. They don't know how to expose. And those kind of people, like let's say a university student, wanting something easy just for the fun of it, they're not doing photography super serious. It's not a lot of students that have 12 or 13,000 rand to spend on a camera. So it was expensive. It wasn't well spec'd enough. It wasn't capable enough. And it was also kind of plasticky. Like, I mean, a Pentax K1000, again, it built like a tank and cheap. And the Pentax 17 was, it didn't feel like it was built like a tank. I mean, modern manufacturing restrictions, like it's going to be difficult to make a camera like that fully metal with metal cogs and gears and springs and film advanced lever.
Well, I think if they did, it would cost the same as a Leica.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's a reason why the Leica M6 is over 100,000 Rand, because it's all made out of metal, and it's a level of technology and manufacturing that is extremely specialized these days. Making a digital camera is relatively easy. Make mass-produced electronic parts out of China. You want to make something that's all mechanical. There's very few places that have the ability to do that these days. So I understand why the Pentax 17 had mostly plastic parts inside. It was still a lot of money spent on a mostly plastic camera. It was hard to justify it. And that's probably why it hasn't sold as well as it did.
And in the second-hand market, because you touched on the K1000, is that, I know it's one of the most popular in the second-hand market, but what else nowadays do the film community in South Africa look for when they come and talk to you about it?
They'll look for something that is reliable. Is one of the reasons why the K1000 is so. Yeah, or even if it's electronic, at least an electronic camera that is known for its reliability, because some are really reliable, like a Nikon F3. I mean, there's a lot of electronics in there, but the thing is indestructible. But there are also a lot of electronic cameras that are temperamental. And the reason why it's important is because with a mechanical camera, if you find a technician who knows what they're doing, they're relatively easy to fix if something goes wrong. It's just cogs and gears and springs. If you really can't make the part from scratch, you can find a donor camera that's broken and take the parts from that one. With a camera that's got electronics internally, when it dies, it's pretty much done. You can't resuscitate those electronics easily. You need someone who really, really knows what they're doing. And those kind of technicians are few and far between worldwide, let alone locally. So, and you could get donor electronic parts from another camera, but it's just easier to just buy another camera. Like if you really like that model of camera, don't look for a broken one to fix your broken one. Just find another one exactly the same that is fully functional and use that. But there's a lot of people who don't like the idea of investing in something that they're likely going to have to put a lot of time and effort and money into keeping going. It's just easier to buy a mechanical camera that is less likely to break.
Yeah, on top of the film cost.
Oh yeah.
Processing.
Yeah, exactly.
So Armani, in terms of film stock and repackaged or, things you can get to bulk load, what's happening on that scene?
The recent development that's been going around is rehoused film made by sort of boutique film producers. They didn't produce their own film. They would get Kodak Cinema film in bulk, and then they would cut it down to 36 exposures, and they put it into their own canisters with their own branding. There were a lot of companies around that were doing that exact thing. They would take the cinema film, they'd remove the anti-reflective coating on the back, the layer that would prevent halation and all that kind of stuff, and they would...
Doesn't Cine still leave it on or something?
I think Cine still take it off.
Oh.
Because the Cine still film has got... Really? Yeah, if you look at the images...
They get more halation in the
lot of
Cine
halation
still
in the
moving.
Cine film. It's one of the things that people love about it, or hate, depending on your style. It's kind of like a Marmite type of film. You either love it or you hate it. So Cine still were one of the originals original companies that used to do that. And then a lot of copycat companies went and started doing the same thing. That is until recently, whereas now Kodak have gone and announced they're no longer going to be supplying those companies with their cinema film. You have to have basically a film production company, and you've got to go to Kodak and tell them, here's my motion picture company, I'm buying this motion picture film for motion picture purposes, and if you can prove that to Kodak, then they'll sell you the motion picture film.
So what does that mean for Cinestil as a company?
It means they can't get film stock anymore, most likely. This is kind of recent, so we're still seeing how it's going to play out. But that's what we suspect, is that companies like CineStill won't be able to get film stock from Kodak anymore, and you will no longer be able to get things like CineStill 800T and all the other sort of alternatives, one of which was available from Cape Film Supply. And last I checked a few months ago, I think they were sold out, but it was on their website. If you had to ask them now, I think they probably struggle to get. So that's for people who like to shoot something a little bit more experimental or something different to your mass-produced commercial film like Kodak and Fujifilm. That looks like that's going to be becoming
Well, guys,
extinct.
thanks very much for joining us. Armani, pleasure having you on the show. And by the way, if you're wondering about this beautiful equipment here, everything we talked about or had our hands on is available here at Kameraz, as well as film, for those who wonder where to get this stuff. And thanks for joining us.